Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday evening to you all. I hope you guys are doing well out there and certainly had yourselves a fantastic day. And I hope you are having a great week out there so far. Appreciate y'all folks tuning in this evening as we continue to try to figure out what's going to happen not only for this weekend with a coastal low that could affect the weather for you folks along the eastern seaboard, really talking about the Northeast, but we'll give you a lot of information about what's to come into Thanksgiving week. That'll be what most of this video is about, is next week's weather. One thing that confidence is really beginning to increase on is that we're going to have colder than average temperatures across areas of the country. But we need to figure out the details on this storm system. I think confidence is pretty high that we are going to see some type of storm system next week across the country. It's going to start in the middle of the country and really move across the eastern portion of the lower 48. But what is this going to bring? Is this going to bring a lot of rain, windy conditions, snow for certain areas? What's going to happen behind this system? We need to figure out this information for you folks. So continue to tune in, but we're going to give you some really good information about what we know as of right now in this video. So if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If you ever consider joining the channel, the join tab should be under the video, whether you're watching from the desktop or from mobile. I appreciate the folks who support me in that way by being members of the channel. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put those in the comments below so I can pray over it and so others can do so too. So we'll start off by talking about what's going on out there right now. Pretty much what we discussed in this morning's video. We got some energy up here in the northwest, falling in the form of rain in the lower elevations and some higher elevation snow. And then we're dealing with some rains across central and southern California. Definitely some wet times down here. And then the southeastern portion of the country, we're dealing with a lot of rain, a lot of tropical rain. I mean, it is torrential downpours down here in southern Florida. We have a lot of rotation off the coastline, a lot of spinners. There's probably a lot of water spouts just off the coast of Florida with a lot of energy just kind of whirling around out here. And this will eventually move completely off the coast of the southeast, where basically a low pressure will continue to deepen and then head northeast and get very close to our folks here in New England, but it's looking like this is trending a little bit further off the coast, which is good news. But we need to watch out for our folks in Nova Scotia and areas of Atlantic Canada for sure. But the middle of the country is pretty quiet. It's really kind of the four corners of the lower 48, except the northeast that's seeing some action today. But other than that, let's continue to move forward here. And we're going to start it right off by speaking on what could potentially happen this weekend. We're not going to stay too long on this, like I said, just because this system is trending away from land and doesn't look like it's going to be as high impact as maybe we thought a couple of days ago. So here it is. We'll start off Friday morning. And by the way, this does have a chance to develop into like a subtropical system, but it's very, very low, and I don't think it's going to do so. But here it is. You see the L down here. You got energy up here associated with the northern stream, and then you got this low pressure associated with the southern stream down here. So these are going to try to meet, but they kind of meet a little bit too late. I mean, even this system off the coast of the eastern seaboard is strong on its own. It really doesn't need any help from the northern stream. But, you know, you got rain associated from the northern energy that moves over the northeast. A little bit of rain as far south as maybe North Georgia into the southeast. But I don't think this is going to be a big-time rainmaker, unfortunately, for areas that really need the rain, like the mountains, the southern Alps, central Alps region. But, you know, I think the more you get further up northeast, the more rain you will see. But as you can tell, you got this energy here and this energy here, and they get very close to really turning into a big-time system, and they eventually do turn into a pretty strong system, but it's as it's moving into Canada. And we're going to be dealing with probably some wind-driven rain in the down east areas of Maine. But if you get to the other side of Maine, even northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, this could fall with some wet snow as we're getting into Saturday afternoon, this coming Saturday, the 18th. But as you can tell, for most of everybody else, a pretty quiet weekend. We could have some wraparound energy that gets popped off the Great Lakes here. Could spark some lake effect energy, whether it's rain or snow. We need to figure that out, but we got to figure out how cold this air mass is behind this system right here. So we could get some more energy that flies over the northeast and could deliver some higher elevation snow, maybe lower elevation rain. We'll see how this works as we get into Sunday. But as you can tell, our next system entering our screen right here. And this is what the Euro is saying for all that. And we'll quickly go over the GFS too with this system. Here it is. Even the GFS is even further east now with this system. And honestly, the moisture that you're going to get is really not even associated much with this low pressure off the coastline. This could have been a big time nor'easter for the areas of the Northeast, the U.S., but just doesn't look like it's going to be the case. But there will be some moisture Friday night into Saturday for the Northeast, and some of this could be snow. And then behind us, like I said, kind of just like the European, could get some backside energy here into Sunday. Could fall in the form of snow in the Northeast, a little bit colder air than what the European's saying. And then here is the energy, our storm system for Thanksgiving week. Okay, so we'll talk about rains from this system, from this first system this weekend. You know, the blend of all models saying maybe an inch and a quarter of rain in eastern areas of Maine. Maybe a half inch, 3/4 of an inch out here in southeast Mass and southern areas of New England. But most of everybody else, guys, maybe a quarter to a half inch of rain, maybe 3/4 of an inch of rain at most for the Northeast with this. A little bit of snow could fall. The blend of all models showing a couple inches of snow up here in northern Maine, maybe a half inch to an inch. As a lot of this is associated with the backside energy. But up here, you could get some wet snow for a period of time. We'll watch this for northern Maine because this could trend more. We got to watch how much cold air catches up with this moisture. But really looking forward here, the big meat of this video is going to be talking about this going forward. So if you really only cared about what's going to happen Thanksgiving week, you got to the right timestamp because this is it. So let's talk about what we're the most confident on first. And that is the temperatures getting into Thanksgiving week. So what you're looking at here is the latest information from the Climate Prediction Center. This was issued today at around 3 p.m. 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. Confidence continues to increase for a large portion of the country, the central and eastern portion of the country, to be at least a little bit below average temperatures. Could be well below average temperatures. And this is air that's moving in from the Arctic. A little bit of an opening in Canada where some of this Arctic air spills down from the north. So we're certainly going to see it, but this is valid from the 21st to the 25th. So, right through Thanksgiving, right through the heart of the Thanksgiving period. And listen, below average temperatures are looking likely. And then you go to the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. I mean, it does nothing but increase. I mean, you have an area of that our chances are, what is that? That is make sure I get this right. That is a 60 to 70% chance of temperatures being below average in the 23rd to the 29th. So this takes us through Thanksgiving all the way pretty much to the weekend and to the early portion of the week after. So in my opinion, and I'm going to show you this, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, it's looking like this is going to be a pretty long period of below average temperatures in the central and eastern U.S. Now, does that mean we're going to have 20 degrees below average? I don't think so. But I do think we're going to sit about average to below average to round off November. And we'll show you what I mean here in a second. But if you're in the western U.S., not trying to leave you high and dry, but it looks like a pretty pleasant Thanksgiving. Not really any big-time storminess. And a ridge will really be dominating your pattern. So this is where I sometimes will lose people here. But, I said this morning that I would kind of not nerd out, but kind of nerd out with you guys. So what you're seeing here is low pressure and high pressure. High pressure is symbolized in the orange, warmer colors. Low pressure symbolized in the blue. We talked a lot about this and how it moves these tropical systems back in September when we were breaking down Hurricane Lee, Idalia, things like that. But this is different. We still look at this kind of stuff, even in severe weather season and in winter weather. We definitely do. So what you got going on, we're getting into this weekend. We got a little bit of some ridging moving up into Canada, but, this will eventually kind of break down. And as you can tell, Sunday morning, we got the blues over eastern Canada, over the Northeast, and that symbolizes low pressure. And we know what we just talked about. There will be literally a low pressure affecting areas of the Northeast and Atlantic Canada and Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. You guys will be impacted by a coastal system. And this is coming basically at the base of an upper trough, which is in the blue. So the blues, I'm going to call those, you're going to hear me call them a lot, upper troughs, trough of low pressure. Sometimes they're called short waves. It's just energy. And typically when you see kind of a dip like this, the jet dips with it. And we know that storm systems ride with the jet. I'll show you a better example of that here in a second. So these blues that you see right here, which symbolizes storminess and generally more cool temperatures, heads on off. So you'll probably get a cool down behind this. All right, to be very brief. And then we see this big blue blob. I said that a lot in this morning's video, that starts showing up down here in the southern portions of the country. Okay, and you're thinking, oh man, you know, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana about to freeze up here. It's not what this necessarily means. Okay, now it typically is you typically have this and an associated cold front is trailing behind it. But what kind of linkage do you have to the cold air? So you keep this going, and this is telling me right down here. And by the way, we are looking at the GFS ensembles here. So the GFS ensemble, very very reliable model run here that we can look at, and symbolizes some sort of storm system down here. Now this is basically an upper trough, and then this turns into a more elongated upper trough, and you have a full-fledged ridging all the way up into western Canada, even definitely over areas of the western U.S., and you have troughing, a dip in the jet stream over areas of the central and eastern U.S. So this tells us that there's, like I said, a dip in a jet stream. That means that the storm track dips south, and that we have some kind of stormy pattern over the eastern U.S. And if you're confused about what day we're at, always look right up here. Okay, and sometimes when we're looking at Weather Bell, it'll be over here on this side of your screen. So this is the morning of the 12th, November 22nd. So this is telling us cooler than average temperatures probably, and then some type of storm system around here. Now, typically the cooler than average temperatures follow behind the storm system, an associated cold front that is associated with an upper trough. Okay, so this moves through. So it's really as we get into Thursday when I really think we start to get very cold up here in the northern portion of the country. In fact, it's before Thursday, but we're going to have some kind of storm system that's going to be probably heading on out of the Northeast, and then we're getting fully into Thanksgiving, and then we have to watch even what happens into the weekend after. Not this weekend, but next weekend, the weekend after Thanksgiving. We can have an interesting pattern that sets up then, too, with a real good linkage of cold air that really dives down to the middle part of the country. Okay, but we don't get too far ahead of ourselves here. So another great way to look at this is, you know, we're starting off Sunday morning, right? It looks like it's dominated by the southern branch. So what happens here is we're starting to get into Monday afternoon, and then we start to get into Tuesday morning. So what you got here is we got a ridge. I'm going to try to draw on this for you to help you out. See these streamlines with these kind of arrows going like this, and this dramatically dips down here, and then it kind of goes like that. That is our trough digging down. So at this point, it looks like it's kind of positively tilted, which indicates a weaker system, but you got some sort of system right here. And there's the low pressure right there, following in the path of the jet. There's your L showing up here. Okay, so storm system digging down here with a dip in the jet, which this is what you're seeing, these vibrant colors. This is basically winds at 250 millibars, which is about where the jet stream sits aloft, about 30 to 35,000 feet up in the air. So where the jet sits, that is what the storm track takes, and that's exactly what's going on now. I know you're thinking, well, the L is kind of outside this area, but this is just in general. You know, you could have the L over here. You know, you could have the L over here. It's not going to follow this exact track that I make, but that's your dip in the jet stream associated with this digging upper trough. So this moves in, and then then we have some troughing that becomes a little bit more zonal. But as we're getting into next weekend, okay, we could have a spill of some Arctic air that continues to spill down. So we need to figure that one out. But a little bit closer look at, you know, the blue blobs and the orange blobs, okay? And here it is, okay? So you got the blue anomalies right here. This indicates low pressure, okay? Storm system right in here. You're gonna have some kind of storm system that flies at the base of this upper trough, which is where the jet is, okay? This flies through, and then we're gonna have Arctic air. I mean, I keep saying Arctic air. I mean, it's going to feel like Arctic air in the northern portion of the country. We're going to have cooler than average temperatures that are going to be dominating a lot of the country. And what's interesting to me, what's starting to get more interesting to me, is what happens after Thanksgiving into the following weekend, where it looks like you have a dump of really cold air into the middle of the country. So we got some things to figure out with this. So, you know, let's go on and back this up. One thing I want to show you, a lot of people A lot of people will show you stuff like this and you immediately associate this with extremely cold air. I mean, it looks, pretty if you're a cold weather fan, and it looks like really cold temperatures. But keep in mind, okay, we're going to take this is around Tuesday evening of next week, okay? So what you're looking at here is temperature anomalies. So, in the orange and reds, that's temperatures that are above average. The blues, especially the greens, that's temperatures that are below average. So we continue to make our way into, for example, this is Tuesday morning of next week, right? Let's take it all the way to Tuesday evening. Okay, so in fact, no, let's take it all the way to about Tuesday morning. I think that's perfect. Tuesday morning. We did this morning too. Tuesday morning, there it is. Big blue blob right here, just indicating low pressure, some kind of storm system. Okay, this is a great example of how the cold front is trailing behind energy. Okay, all right, so you're thinking, man, it's probably pretty cold if this thing's right over us. Not necessarily. You turn around and you look at the same model and you look at temperatures, and that blue blob is right over this area, and you have those warmer than average temperatures right over this area. You're thinking, well, what's going on? Well, if you go another 12 to 24 hours after this, there it is, bang. Below average temperatures pop up in response to this system that moves through with a trailing cold front that probably sweeps through sometime early to midway next week, and there goes your below average temperatures that begin to move eastward and then take over the eastern U.S., and by the time we're waking up Thursday morning, we could have some cold turkeys out there for our Thanksgiving. And then we keep going into, Friday morning, below average temperatures, and then, what's interesting is, like I said, we get into next weekend. And in fact, let me see, is this the latest? Let's see. Yeah, this is old. So let's go on, just look at the one. Okay, so there it is. It's a little bit more moderated. But what's interesting to me is colder than average temperatures move in, kind of settle around for especially the upper kind of, I would say, like up into the Midwest, the Ohio River Valley, but you still got around average to below average temperatures in the Southeast. But, it looks like you get a big dump of cold air into the middle of the country sometime next weekend. Will this stick? We need to figure this one out, but it's very interesting. It looks like you got a little bit of a ridge flex into the Southeast, might save us here, but this is as far out as it goes. But, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It really is. But we're very confident that colder than average temperatures are going to pretty much affect us next week. What happens after that? That's a big question too. It really is. But what does this mean as far as temperatures? Okay. Well, we look at the GFS from lunchtime today, and here it is. This is around afternoon temperatures for next Tuesday, the 21st. Chilly conditions across the Midwest, but the real, true, really cold air has not moved in yet. This is when it comes in. We start to get into Wednesday afternoon. This is when the colder temperatures could potentially move through. This could moderate some, but around midday, you only got temperatures in the 40s all the way down to the deep south. Okay, potentially. But then you're locking in below freezing up here in the northern plains and the upper Midwest. And by the time we're waking up Thanksgiving morning, now this isn't a forecast, it's just one run. Sub-freezing temperatures all the way down into the southern Alps. You're well into the teens, some single digits in the northern plains, and you're locked into tundra kind of conditions up here in the upper portion of the country. And even a chilly Thanksgiving. This is considered below average. Only highs in the 50s to the southeast. A little bit warmer in Texas. So, and then, like I said, it gets very interesting. Start to get into Friday, and it looks like you have some kind of Arctic front that really sags down, a reinforcing shot of cold air. And this is when some really cold temperatures could get into more of the western U.S., northern plains, northern Rockies. This shows some sort of Arctic boundary into here. But this is on far out, but man, it really dumps some nasty cold air into the middle portion of the country. We need to figure that one out. We really do. And it's the same thing with the Euro, European model. This is low temperatures for Thanksgiving morning. Chilly conditions, nothing unbearable, but it is pretty chilly. And this is temperatures potentially around high temperatures for the European for Thanksgiving. Definitely not as cold as what the GFS is showing, but we're not getting. There's very cold air right over the U.S.-Canadian border. There is like a fine cutoff between frigid Arctic unbearable air and just really cold air. So we need to figure out, is Is this kind of just like blast number one of cold air, and then we get a reinforcing shot of really, really cold air behind it? Or is this all going to come at once, or is it kind of wait? So, but we know that colder temperatures are coming next week for sure. So what about the energy? What about the storm system? Well, let's look at the GFS first and look at what is showing on the GFS model. Monday morning starts off with a system right in the middle of the country, right? A lot of rain. We're not going to get some early season crazy snowstorm in the Mississippi Valley, the plains, or anything like that. Could get some snow flying around next Monday morning, in areas of the high plains, Colorado, Wyoming, western Dakotas, western Kansas. Very possible. We'll fine tune that as we get closer. Okay, and then, we start to get into Tuesday morning, right? You got a developing, strengthening low pressure right here. All right, you got energy up in here. You got energy right here. They're going to try to meet. All right, you're starting off with a front end thump of some kind of winter weather in Pennsylvania, western Maryland, the higher elevations, the higher hills in this region. Quickly turns to rain, could turn to an icing event. This is just one run of the GFS. Could get some thunderstorms along the Gulf Coast. It's very possible. We'll fine tune that. Low pressure flying right over the Ohio River Valley, Midwest and the Ohio Valley. And then, we start to get into overnight next Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. We get some heavy winter weather that rides into the interior sections of New England. And we got a lot of, because of the track of this low pressure, it's not off the coast. This will bring a lot of warm air into these areas. So, you start off by potentially some heavy ice, heavy snow based off this run. And then it could switch to rain. But, you could get some heavy front-end thumping of winter weather from this. And then this low gets into Canada. Could be a big-time winter storm in areas of eastern Canada. Okay, and then the cold air begins to kind of make its way over the Great Lakes. What's going to be the orientation of the shot of cold air? Is it going to dig further southeast, or is it going to go more of a zonal, kind of more so west to east? But this will pop off probably the lake effect snows, probably into Thanksgiving morning. So there's a potential, if you live from Buffalo, Watertown, Syracuse, areas of the UP and Michigan, areas of Michigan in general, it could be a wintry Thanksgiving if you live in the Great Lakes region. Okay, the snow belt regions. It could. So we need to watch that. So I think that this system could be impactful, could bring a lot of rain for people who are traveling back and forth, but I think the meat of this system is on out of here by the time we get to Thanksgiving. I think this happens the first 1 to 3 days before Thanksgiving. But really, latest GFS, look at this. It drops an Arctic boundary down the Rockies and brings snow, brings a lot of cold air, and, you're getting on out here, okay? But, you start to get to the afternoon, the Black Friday, the 24th, and all of a sudden, we got a little system moving through, bring some winter weather to areas of like Missouri, and we keep this going here. This kind of fizzles out. But, man, you got a lot of Arctic air hanging out right here in the middle of the country sometime the last several days of November. This will become a bigger topic once we figure out what's going to happen in Thanksgiving. I think we're going to have some active times ahead, and I think we're going to enter a more of a wintry pattern for areas of the country. But, man, the models are starting to tease at some kind of Arctic boundary. Kind of getting into next weekend, kind of the last several days of November. That could end up being a bigger topic than what happens next week. It really could be. But we got to figure out a lot with that. There's a lot of energy starts flying around with some cold air around. But you look at the European, same deal. You got a storm system flying deep down here in the southern part of the country because of this deep digging trough. The jet stream's kind of digging south, brings a lot of rains to areas of the deep south. Cold air is kind of trying to catch up with this system. And then we get into Tuesday afternoon, 21st. We got a low pressure kind of moving over the same areas that GFS is. So the models are starting to kind of come together somewhat. Cold air is catching up with it. But it's a little too late for this to be a big winter weather event for, areas of the U.S., but this turns into a pretty big winter storm for areas of Canada. But it's a warmer system because the low pressure tracks further to the northwest. So, if you want, winter weather for the Northeast next week, if you do, the European's not as favorable as the GFS. It just brings a big old, probably a wind-driven rainstorm, cold rain for certain areas. Might start off with some winter weather. That's what the European is showing. With a shot of cold air behind it, like I said, what's these lake effect snow bands going to do? It's going to be more so kind of west to east. Will it be northwest to southeast. We got to figure that one out. Okay, and then there it is. There's that Arctic boundary right in here, dropping some snow, the northern Rockies, and then some sort of cold air mass really settles in the middle of the country. Got to figure that out. Talking about energy, I mentioned I would talk a little bit on this, and we will here. So what you're looking at here is energy in the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere. Each area where you see vibrant colors like the yellows and the oranges, think of that as energy in the atmosphere. Okay, you got energy associated with the northern stream, which is in the northern portion of your screen, the upper portion of your screen, and the energy associated with the southern stream, which is down here. So here comes our main piece of energy on the southern stream, right? You got this energy right here and this energy right here. You're going to hear me say the word energy a lot. Well, they kind of meet up right here in the middle of the country, okay? And this helps to give this system a boost, becomes a stronger system. But you got another piece of energy associated with a good bit of cold air up here in Canada, and this tries to catch up with this also. But it kind of does it a little bit too late. It looks like this energy right here outruns this energy right here. If they were to meet and dig down further right down here, you could have more cold air involved with the system and a stronger storm system. But off the GFS, just showing you an example, they kind of meet up a little bit too late and up here, and then this heads on out. Okay? And then we start watching energy after that. But we're not, I kind of said I would get a little bit detailed on this tonight, but right now I'm not going to do that. I've already probably blown a couple people's minds talking about troughs and stuff, but we'll talk more on that when there's a better example of it. And there's visibly better pieces on the table for us to look at. But in general, we do look to see where the connection is of this energy out here. This is rainfall between the first system this weekend, and this is kind of the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, and other areas. But here comes the system right here. This is the blend of all models. And now all that rain that you just saw show up on your screen here, this is rain associated with the system Thanksgiving week. So could get a lot of rains in Kentucky that need it, Tennessee, Ohio. Anybody that needs rain in this portion of the country, this system is most likely going to bring some rain. Is it going to be a washout? We're not sure. But definitely some rains. Okay, we look up here in the northeast. Same thing. This is moisture associated with the first system this weekend, and then we start to get into next week, and then this shows a lot of moisture making its way. And this just picks up on precipitation. This shows a lot of moisture for the northeast. Okay, so it's going to be a wet storm. Definitely a big-time storm in next week. We just got to figure out how strong it's going to be. And guys, also with the winds, we could get some gusty winds with this system. We could. Here it comes right here. Could get some higher wind gusts in these higher mountain peaks of the Appalachian Mountains. So we need to figure out that too. There's a lot of fine things we need to fine tune out here. Details we need to fine tune, but we'll get it all figured out for you folks. But anyways, I'm gonna jump off here. That was a lot. But God bless all y'all. Y'all take it easy out there, and I'll be with you guys in the morning. God bless.